Today we discuss about HTTP session concept in Laravel. In this we are having main topics like introduction, interacting with the session, session blocking, adding custom session drivers. These are all the main topics in Laravel HTTP session. And coming to subtopics, configuration, driver prerequisites, retrieving data, storing data, flash data, deleting data, regenerating the session ID, session blocking, implementing the driver, registering the driver. These are all the subtopics in HTTP session of Laravel. So let's see one by one the introduction. So since HTTP driven applications are stateless, sessions provide a way to store information about the user across multiple requests. That user information is typically placed in a persistent store or backend that can be accessed from subsequent requests. So configuration. So our application's session configuration file is stored at config/session.php file. The session driver configuration option defines where session data will be stored for each request. So we are having different session drivers like file, cookie, database, memcached or redis, dynamodb, array. So these are all the session drivers that are available. So in order to set the environment variable called session_driver option in .env file. So let's see driver prerequisites. So database. When using the database session driver, so we have to ensure that we have a database table to contain the session data. So typically this is included in Laravel's create_users_database.php migration file. So we may use the php _make:_session-table command or php _migrate. So after creating that php _make:_session-table command, so we have to run php _migrate command in order to create session-table. So in order to store the database sessions. Now we see Redis. So before using Redis sessions with Laravel, so we have to either install PHP Redis PHP extension via pickle, or install the predis or predis by predis package. So interacting with the session, retrieving data. There are two primary ways of working with session data in Laravel. So the global session helper and via a request instance. So first let's look at accessing the session via request instance. So we will be using the syntax like $request session get method, and we will be mentioning the key within that get method. So in this way we will retrieve session value, and we can also use default value as a second parameter to this get method. Now we see the global session helper. So by using session helper method also we can retrieve the session value. So for example, syntax will be like this: session of key. And if you want to maintain, if I want to pass a default value, session key comma default value. And for both methods, I mean both ways, like request instance or session request instance and a global session helper, so we can also pass as a closure as a second parameter. So for example, $request session get key comma function, which will return a closure value. And after that, for global helper function also we can pass closure as a second parameter. So like this we will be having session retrieving methods. Either we can use request instance method or global session helper method. Now we see retrieving all session data. So $request session all method, retrieving a portion of the session data. So $request session only method, where we will be mentioning all the session names, or we can use except method. So if I want to exclude username email, so we will be using except method. Like this we will be using only and except method in order to retrieve a subset of session data. Determining if an item exists in the session, so has method we use. So syntax will be like this: $request session has of users. To determine if an item is present in the session, even if its value is null, we may use exists method. To determine if an item is not present in the session, so we may use a missing method. So $request session missing of users. Storing data. So to store data in the session, we may typically use the request instances put method or the global session helper. Like syntax will be like this: $request session put method, within that key comma value. Or if I want to use session global global helper function, so session of key arrow mark value, like association associative array format, session of key value. So like this we will be storing data in the session by either making use of put method or global session helper method. Pushing to array session values. So if I want to push a new value, so then we will be using $request session push of user.teams comma developers. Like this we will be pushing a new value to the existing session array. Retrieving and deleting an item. So $request session pull key comma default. So it will retrieve and delete an item from the session in a single statement. Incrementing and decrementing session values. So if our session data contains an integer, so we wish to increment or decrement, we may use increment and decrement methods. So $request session increment of count, or if I want to increment by 2, so then $request session increment of count comma increment by equal to 2. So like this we will be using the increment method. If I want to decrement, $request session decrement of count, $request session decrement of count comma decrement by equal to 2. So like this we will be using increment and decrement, and also increment by decrement by methods options in sessions. Now we see flash data. So if I want to store items in the session for the next request, so we may do so using flash method. For example, $request session flash of status comma task was successful. So if I want to persist our flash data for several requests, so we may use the reflash method. So it will be like this: $request session reflash. So if I want to only need to keep specific flash data, then we may use a keep method. For example, to persist flash data only for the current request, so we may use the now method. So $request session now status comma task was successful. So like this we'll be using the now method. Deleting data. So how do we delete data in sessions in Laravel? So we are using forget method. So if I want to remove only a piece of data, so we will be using forget method. So if we would like to remove all data from the session, so we may use the flush method. So syntaxes will be like this: $request session forget of name. So if I want to flush all the if I want to remove all the data from the session, $request session flush. So like this we will be using the forget and flush methods in order to delete data from session. So now regenerating the session ID. Regenerating the session ID is done in order to prevent malicious users from exploiting a session fixation attack on our application. So syntax will be like this: $request session regenerate method. So regenerate. So $request session regenerate semicolon. So like this we will be using the regenerate method in order to regenerate the session ID. If I want to regenerate the session ID and remove all data from the session in a single statement, so we may use the invalidate method. So it will remove all the session data and it will regenerate the session ID. So like this we will be using invalidate method. Session blocking. So to utilize session blocking, our application must be using a cache driver that supports atomic locks. So those cache drivers include memcached, DynamoDB, Redis, MongoDB, database, file and array drivers. So in addition we may not use the cookie session driver. So by default Laravel allows requests using the same session to execute concurrently. For example, from the front end, so two parallel requests are coming into the application concurrently. So there might be a chance of losing, we may lose some data, session data. So whenever we get the parallel requests, because session ID regeneration will be there. So in order to prevent that one session data loss, so we will be using block method. So we will be adding block method to the routing. So for example, route post profile comma function block. So block method will have two arguments: lock seconds, wait seconds. So if we won't mention any default values, it will take default value as a 10 seconds. So lock seconds will take 10 seconds, wait seconds will take 10 seconds. So like this, lock second means the number of seconds it will held, the session will held. And if we wait second means the request should wait the number of seconds we mention in the parameter. So like this we will be using lock seconds and wait seconds option for block method. Now we see adding custom session drivers. So session drivers, we can, if I want to use our own session driver apart from existing session drivers like whatever we have seen as a file session, cookie, memcached. Apart from all this, so we will be using if I want to use our own session drivers, we will be creating a class and which will implement a session handle interface. So this interface contains just a few simple methods like open, close, read, write, destroy, gc, garbage collector. So like this we will be using different methods in order to create a custom session driver. And once we create this class, for example Mongo session handler, this is a custom session driver which we create. After creating this class, by adding all those methods, so open, close, read write, destroy, gc. So after creation of this class, we have to register that class within the app service provider boot method. So within the boot method, we will be having one session extend method. So with that extend method, we will be adding our custom session driver to the application. For example, syntax will be like this. Within the boot method of app service provider, we will be having extend method like this. So session scope resolution operator extend Mongo. So the class name is Mongo session handler, but here we mention just simply Mongo, comma closure. So whatever the remaining functionality, function, application, $app, so which will return a new Mongo session handler. So this is a, like this we will be mentioning the custom session driver. First we create a custom session driver class, and after that we will register session extend by using extend method. And once the session driver has been registered, we may specify the Mongo driver as our application's session driver using the session underscore driver environment variable, or within the application's config slash session.php configuration file. So like this we will be using the custom session driver. So first we create a class, then after we register, and once we register we will be adding that to the configuration files like a session underscore driver environment variable, or within the applications config slash session.php file. So like this we will be using the custom session driver. So this is all about sessions, HTTP sessions concept in Laravel. So thank you so much. This is Universal Heart Sister Ravindar Reddy Yampalla. Thanks to all of my fans, supporters and followers, and a special thanks to all of my YouTube subscribers. Thank you so much.